Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Welcome to our Fall 2022 Supply Chain and Business Analytics Distinguished Speaker Series event. My name is Renu Ramnarayan, and I'm a faculty member in the Computing and Decision Sciences department at the Stillman School of Business, where our business analytics program and our supply chain program, both of these are housed. This evening, we're delighted to host Gokhan Cakmak, see, I got it right, Cakmak, and Jorge Ryzwaniuk. I give you the permission to mispronounce my last name. Gokhan Cakmak is a head of supply chain North America at Advanced Accelerator Applications, which is a Novartis company. Gokhan has 20+ years of supply chain expertise in automotive, medical devices, and pharmaceutical industries. He earned his executive MBA from the Chabani School of Management in Istanbul and received his industrial engineering degree at Gazi University in Ankara, Turkey. Jorge Ryzwaniuk is the head of supply chain for cell and gene therapies at Novartis. He has held leadership roles across South America at some of the most prominent life sciences companies, including Johnson & Johnson and Boston Scientific, most recently as the country's supply chain head of Brazil. He holds an executive MBA from the Universidad de Sao Paulo. He also holds a bachelor's degree in international trade and logistics from UADE. Novartis sits at the intersection of cutting-edge medical science and innovative digital technology. Supply chain for innovative medicines is complex and challenging, with short expiration timelines, live tissue transport, cold chain storage, and in some cases, radioactivity precautions. This evening, Gokhan and Jorge will be sharing key insights into the nature of supply chains for innovative medicines and how it is tackled at Novartis for two of their most exciting products launched in the past few years. Before I hand it over to Gokhan and Jorge, I want to remind you that all your mics and cameras have been muted. We do welcome your questions, both the in-person audience and the remote audience. Our speakers will address those questions right after the presentation. During the Q&A session, those of you that are here in person, just raise your hand and wait for us to bring that mic to you. Those of you that are joining us remotely, please drop your questions and comments in chat. So without further ado, let's give Gokhan and Jorge a warm Seton Hall Pirates welcome. Jorge,
thank you. Good night. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. So I'm very glad that I received the invitation to participate in this event. It looks like yesterday I was sitting back there trying to hide myself from the audience and blink, and I'm here presenting to you. So for the ones that are in the last row, potentially you will sit in here in the future, so you have a pathway forward, okay? So as I have this introduction, I'm Jorge, I'm from Argentina. Let me share some personal background. I'm from Argentina, I'm married, I have two kids, two Brazilian kids. I was living in Brazil for a long time, so for the ones that love soccer, this time of the year in my house is quite interesting. So let's jump a little bit, I will explain what we do. First of all, I want to introduce a little bit about Novartis. Novartis is probably one of the oldest companies in the world. Our headquarters are in Basel, in Switzerland, where many companies, many pharmaceutical companies are there. If you see that building, it looks familiar, it's the same architecture that designed the Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao. So this is a Frank Henry building over there. We are truly an international company. We have 100,000 employees for more than 149 nationalities. We have many manufacturing sites spread in the world. Majority of them are in US, Switzerland, France, or Germany. Novartis in 2022 will reach 800 million patients, which is remarkable. Recent statistics shows that the war hit the mark of 8 billion people. So 1 out of 10 persons in the world are receiving one product of Novartis. So if you do the math here in the audience, at least 4 or 5 are receiving some Novartis product, which make me very proud to be part of this journey, especially when we are treating and enforcing the health of our patients. Let me share a little bit how we are organized internally. So Novartis have mainly 2 divisions. One is the generic and biosimilars divisions. The company's name is Sandoz. If you are following the pharmaceutical industry, you heard that we recently announced the spin-off of Sandoz. And on the other side of the company, we are organized in innovative medicines. For one side, oncology, and the other side, Novartis Pharmaceuticals. To support those business, we have a structure of horizontal structures. One is Novartis Institute of Biomedical Research. We have a campus here in Massachusetts, in Boston area. We have where they are doing all the research of new drugs. We have an structure, global drug development, which are translating those discoveries into processes. We have the NTO technical organization or operations, which is the organization that I report, which is the manufacturing and all the supply chain activities are in that area. And we have customers and technology, which is pretty much all the IT, OT systems supporting all those activities. So it's a quite complex process, a quite complex company with a lot of people working on that. I'm here representing our Morris Plains facility, but as you can see here, we have a quite complex footprint in terms of manufacturing. We have, in terms of cell and genes, we have manufacturing sites here in Morris Plains, one manufacturing site in Stein in Switzerland, and other manufacturing site in Les Ulis in Paris area in France. But as you can see, we have manufacturing sites all over the place, especially in Europe and mainly in between Germany and Switzerland. But we have some footprints as well, not covered by that, but this slide, in countries like Brazil or Slovenia, for example. A little bit about our current footprint locally here in Morris Plains. We have the purpose to be the best in class in terms of gene therapies manufacturing site. So if you don't have, or if you have the opportunity to be in the area, it is quite interesting to see how a manufacturing site looks like. It's a black box, okay? It's not fancy. The magic is happening inside, okay? We have significant capabilities in terms of people, in terms of resources. We can produce, release, and all the related activities for the CAR-T technology. I will explain a little bit what we are doing in this manufacturing site. But this is the first facility that translated the CAR-T technology from clinical into commercial. That was the first ever manufacturing site able to produce a CAR-T product. I will explain a little bit what we are doing, and this is when the things are getting more interesting. Be prepared that I will not talk about any traditional supply chain. You will see something totally different, even different for us internally. So our process starts with the patient. So we collect a sample of the cells of that patient. We call that process leukapheresis. This is happening in the hospital. We move those cells into our facility, we enrich the cells, active the cells, and we transduct the cells with a viral vector. We push those cells to expand, to growth, and lately what we are doing is we are doing the formulation. Then we are freezing those cells, and we are sending those cells to the hospital. The hospital will initiate a chemotherapy cycle, and then will infuse our product. So for the supply chain perspective, forget about a little bit about the cells and all the biology behind this. This is quite unique for two reasons. The first one is clearly the truly make-to-order process. What we are doing is for that patient and exclusively to be used for that patient. And from the supply chain perspective, there's another thing that is unique, which is the raw material, which is the patient cells, is the final product, which is the patient cells. What we are doing in the manufacturing process is manipulating those cells to learn, to teach those cells to identify cancer cells and to kill them. So what you are seeing here is a process where, I don't know any other process, where the raw material and the final product are the same cells, are the same material, as you can see. So it's quite unique. Let me drive you a little bit about more the real things. Those are the PowerPoint things. So the real thing is this is a very high level of our business process, business flow. Everything starts with a physician requesting this material for a patient. The supply chain got that call, and we trigger what we call the scheduling. We need to put that patient into the process of being manufactured. We collect, in the hospital, we collect the cells of that patient, and we move those cells from the hospital to our manufacturing process. And here is where the things are getting very interesting. We need to frozen those cells. Those cells will be frozen at minus 180 with liquid nitrogen. So in order to do that, we need to coordinate activities with the hospital, sending in advance the dewar, which is the shipping container. The patient will need to arrive at the same time that we send the dewar. We collect the cells, and we send those cells for whatever place in the world this patient is to Morris Plains in New Jersey. And I'm talking about moving cells from New York to New Jersey, or moving cells from Saudi Arabia to New Jersey. So what is interesting in this process is we don't have any contingency. We don't have more cells waiting for us if we have any problem on these logistics. So the process needs to be fully coordinated, centralized, and there's no safety net. Then we trigger the manufacturing process. Manufacturing process takes between 1 to 20 days, depending on how the cells are behaving. Some cells grow faster than others, but roughly it's between 18 and 20 days the manufacturing process ends. And this is, again, when we have the challenge on the logistics. We need to coordinate a new dewar arriving into the facility, shipping that cells to the hospital, and then being infused on that process into the hospital. So I have some good stories behind those yellow arrows over there, and I want to share that with you. Sometimes we are going into places where nobody was there before. For example, in order to have this process released from, remember that every time that we are moving this, for example, we have commercial flights to schedule. We have customs in the middle. There's a lot of things that we are seeing here in this slide that are quite straightforward, but when you are into the real life, those things are not working. So for example, in order to make this happen, in many cases, we need to develop a new process with the local authorities and the local customs to speed up the clearance of those products. So we don't have the beauty to wait 1 week in a port waiting to be released for customs. So some cases, and I was part of that back on my days in Brazil, I was negotiating or teaching the customs how to deal with these kind of products. And the most close reference that we have for that is a transplant, a heart transplant. If you need to move one organ to be transplanted, you are not able to wait until somebody will clear from customs. So we develop those processes. The beauty of this process is that we don't have any safety net. So we have no margin for error. So our products are centralized monitored in terms of temperature. Those cells that we are transporting, they don't care if it's summer in Brazil or winter in New York. They need to be preserved all the time. And we develop a shipping container that is able to hold the temperature at minus 180. I will show you pictures later for that. That shipping container have a GPS inside that is able to geolocalize whatever these processes. And this is creating a new kind of challenges as well. And let me share this story with you. We were launching Russia. Russia is in a conflict, as you may know, and they have a lot of concerns about what you are doing with the GPS in my territory. So those kind of things are the things that are not typically involved in any supply chain process. There's another challenge, which is the scheduling. The scheduling means who gets first into treatment, into the manufacturing process. Usually those patients that are arriving into this, they are in the second or third line of treatment, meaning that the first two treatments fail. So they don't have a lot of hopes. Usually this is the last line. So those cells are really tired. They are not healthy cells. So we cannot delay anything on that process. So I'm sharing this because we recently have an example of how you ship something when you have a hurricane, like in Florida a couple of weeks ago. That patient don't care about weather conditions. That process needs to be reliable enough to reach the hospital the moment that you need to be there and the patient is receiving chemotherapy before you jump into with your final product shipment. So it's quite unique, it's quite interesting, it's really passionate what we are doing. We have challenges of not reaching those patients with any traditional transportation method. So we need to go into solutions like renting or hiring a private jet. So those are the kind of things that we need to be prepared when you are going outside of the traditional cargo, shipments, freight, supply chain model. So it's quite unique what we are doing. And the most important thing is any time that we have a doer shipped out of the facility is a family that is hoping for that product to be received, because that is the hope for that family. So let me share you a little bit about the challenges that we have. First of all, this is not fits for all. So we need to train the centers. When we are talking that we will collect that product or that sample from the hospital needs to deliver the quality that we need because at the end of the day, as I said, it's my raw material, okay? So the training on the centers is quite a challenge. You need to certify, the centers need to have health authority approval, we need to certify them in our processes, so it's a long journey to onboard any new center, okay? There's a technical agreement that we need to have with those centers in terms of the quality of the samples that they will deliver for us. Novartis is obviously grandfathering this process and helping on those centers to receive this approval. We have a cold chain logistics challenge, which is regardless where we are, regardless where are the conditions, the inside of the packaging needs to control and maintain the temperature at minus 180. And we are doing that through this solution. What you see there is what we call a doer, or in this case is a DV10. is a bucket of liquid nitrogen where we put the samples. This can goes inside the white box over there, and this is the size of a luggage. So you can easily handle that as a luggage. They have a little wheels, but they have a lot of technology. We have, as I said, a GPS connection. They can send data through 3G and 4G centralized. We are anytime on the shipment process, we know exactly where they are in terms of the logistics. And not only that, but also we can control the temperature remotely, okay? So it's quite unique solution. We have the challenge that we have on this is for how long these shipping containers can hold the temperature. So we have different solutions. One is for 14 days. This solution that you are seeing there is the best in class that we have, is holding the temperature for 20 days. It's a passive container, no need to plug in any outlet or any battery, and this is holding the temperature good enough time to support any transition from manufacturing site to patients' veins. And definitely what is probably the biggest challenge that we have is the on-time delivery. We cannot be late, we cannot be early, we need to be on time. So our current delivery time is measured in windows of 15 minutes. So right now we are able to say what is the window of time that we will be delivering in Osaka, Japan, in next Tuesday with a window of time of 15 minutes into the center. So the operation is quite complex in terms of the just-in-time decision or how to make this happen. Of course, because this is a product that is patient-related and there's no way to interchange that, the change of identity is critical. We cannot mix shipments. It's impossible that the one that is sent for this patient ends up in the other. So there's a massive control in terms of IT to support that chain of identity. The other challenge that we have is behind this is patient name that we cannot handle. So there's a kind of a secret identity, or I don't know exactly how to say that in English, that we need to hold. Even the patient identification is something that only the physician can do. My favorite topic, forecasting. How you anticipate how many patients you will be treating in November 2023. So this is the biggest, or one of the biggest, my favorite one, which is knowing that, how you know how many materials you need to buy to support your manufacturing process in 1 year ahead. So we have several tools. We have statistical tools. We have market progressions or market development progression tools. We are trying to anticipate that. One thing that we are seeing after COVID is our lead times from the vendor's perspective have increased significantly. So today I was talking with my colleagues that we have one product that, for example, we have 300 days of lead time. So how we know what we will need in 300 days ahead is quite interesting. Okay. We have a complex business setup. It's really difficult to predict or to start this process. There's a lot of details that we are handling every time that we onboard a new patient or a new country. Everything, absolutely everything in this process is regulated by health authorities at the extreme that, let me show you this example. We have a vendor that is providing the labels that we place in the final product that is being frozen. So the labels are quite important, and those are key elements for the chain of identity of that product. That vendor changed the ink of the labels. We have a significant impact because we did an assessment to understand if that ink will somehow jeopardize the quality of the cells. And every single material that we are using on the manufacturing process is regulated, means that it's part of our dossier in the FDA. So if tomorrow we are running out of bags and we have another vendor that is able to provide those bags, we cannot onboard them because those are not approved. So the safety net in terms of material management is quite critical. So vendor management is really important in this part of the process. And definitely how you decide or how we define our manufacturing strategy, understanding that any change that we will do now will be only impacted in 2 or 3 years, knowing or trying to anticipate a forecasting of patients that literally we can count by our hands every time that we have a manufacturing decision. So this complexity brings us on the edge of what its supply chain is quite unique. We don't have safety stocks to handle. We don't have a second dose to handle if something goes wrong. It's really, really complex, and I love it. I love it, what I'm doing. My final key message here is Kymriah is really a truly make-to-order product. It's the real make-to-order product. We cannot interchange anything that we are doing with any other product. It's one patient at a time. We have no second shots on this. So for me, it's a real make-to-order. Cells don't understand about logistics, strikes, weather. They grow, they die, and they don't care about your processes. So they don't care about the vendor delays, they don't care about credit holds, they don't care about anything. So any supply chain constraint that you will have, you need to anticipate on that. There's no way to handle this if we do not have contingency for every single part of the process that we are doing. And the third point is, how are you prepared for the things that you cannot see? How you believe that your process is robust enough to do COVID situations, to do a strike or a simple flight cancellation. What do you do with that? We suffer that as passengers, but those shipments needs to go. So thinking in every step of the process, how is the challenge, how is the contingency plan, is something that is in our DNA for this kind of supply chain, which is quite sensitive. This is all the things that I have to share with you. You can see my email address there. There's a lot of details. I have a lot of information, more technical, more business-oriented. Whatever you need, feel free to drop me a line. I will be more than glad to answer that to you. It was a fantastic pleasure to share a little bit what I'm doing and what I'm in love of doing with you guys, and thank you very much.
Hi everybody, I hope you hear me well with my weird accent. So first of all, thank you for having us. So I'm really so excited to be here with you in person. And I think before I start, I should send a special thanks to Ed for his patience. He set up like continuously meetings with us that we rejected or didn't show up. And then also thanks to you guys for coming tonight. So I'm gonna start with myself, a little bit information about myself. So my name is Gokhan Cakmak. I'm the head of supply chain in North America for advanced accelerator applications. I'm gonna call it AAA from now on. It's not insurance company. I'm an industrial engineer. And later I studied business. So I've been with this company over 7 years now. In this industry, I think nuclear medicine over 15 years, since 2007. And so I'm kind of one of the earliest ones working with AAA from the early stages. And prior to the pharma, I worked with automotive and also medical devices. So I moved to the United States in 2014 from Turkey. So Jorge mentioned about Novartis, so I'm going to give you a little bit of information about AAA. So it's a French-based company, pharmaceutical company, and founded in 2002. It's a pretty young company, and I would call it like a startup company. It's founded by an Italian physicist, Stefano Bruno. So I had a chance to also work with him. And so it has 29 sites in 12 different countries and operates in nuclear medicine. It's a little different than pharma, actually. It's really very niche, very small compared to big pharma. And so what happened, something big, Novartis bought the company in 2018 in January. It was like something big for the industry because that was the first time actually a big pharma company bought a small nuclear medicine company. And a company has been growing, and now we continue to grow with this acquisition. So I think like as Jorge did, so I need to give you a little bit of information about our, how these products work, because it's really very different in my opinion, and then I'll try to do it with my words. I hope you're gonna get it. So, so diagnostic by imaging, it's an essential tool in the detection of some diseases like cancer in nuclear medicine. In our case, so it's cancer. And how it works, so in hospital, in the nuclear medicine department, so radiopharmaceutical is injected to the patient, and then it distributes itself in the whole body and concentrates in the disease area. Okay, so and it's radioactive, and then radioactivity allows to provide images, and now we can basically clearly see the lesion with these images, and then basically what physician says that you're like, you have cancer, you're progressing, you're getting better. And similarly, the therapeutic also is the same. So again, the radiopharmaceutical is injected to body and then spreads out in the whole body and then concentrates in the disease area. It's taken up by the lesion, and then the radioactivity kills the cell inside out. So what I'm going to do, if you look at the, so I'm not a scientist, I'm not a radiochemist or pharmacist, so I'm going to use my words to explain it. But if you look at the picture on the right, you see that red and blue object there. So that's our product. So the reddish part is the radioactive material, and then the blue one is the protein. Okay, so when we say that, so we do production, we actually do it. So we put it together. It's really not complex, but it's like kind of magical in my opinion. So and those like yellow rounds or orange, they are the cells, and then there are like receptors on the top. It's like a key. So basically, those receptors receives only some certain proteins. So that's the hard part, to find the protein that matches with the receptor. Okay. So when it is like captured, the radioactivity also goes along with it inside the cell. And either for diagnostic, it starts sending beams, and then that basically the beams captured by the cameras. In this case, it's a PET CT. And then based on that image, so as I explained, so the physicians or whoever is like doing it says that you have the cancer, and then so this is really very safe and very accurate, the method to find out if you have cancer. And then the same idea also the radioactivity goes along with the protein inside the cell, and then it kills the cell from inside out. So it's for diagnostic and therapeutic for the same cancers. That blue part is the same, protein is the same. So for example, for one product, it's like, dotatate. But the red part is changing if it is like diagnostic or if it is for treatment. I hope you get it because it's kind of important for you to understand how it works. So from now on, I'm going to focus on only the treatment part, because diagnostic is like, a little bit different. It's kind of, in my opinion, crazy, and also it's not typical supply chain, because the shelf life that we are talking about is like hours, like 2 hours. So in other words, you need to produce the product and then deliver it to the hospital within 2 hours. So that's why we use like radio pharmacies, like CMOs. So they produce it and then deliver it to hospitals. So the other treatment part or the other products, they're like more like traditional or typical supply chain from end to end. So you see actually for Lutathera is one of our products, and then the other one is Pluvicto. Lutathera is used in treatment of neuroendocrine tumors, and then its shelf life is only 3 days. So produce it, and then needs to be used within 3 days. And Pluvicto is used for prostate cancer, and its shelf life is 5 days. Okay? So I think what makes these products kind of special, because they are radioactive, and then they are dangerous goods also. They are radioactive, you may remember, so when you have radioactive materials, their quantity is like, continuously decreasing. So that makes it like, challenging for supply chain. So let's take our Millburn site. We have a site in Millburn, which is like close to here, maybe like 15-20 minutes from here. And there we produce both Lutathera and also, I'm going to call it PSMA because we only produce right now there the clinical grade, clinical study, product. So it's not Pluvicto, but the same product, exactly the same one. And there are approximately, to give you the idea, so our site in Millburn also is not big. So it's a small site. It's not like, the sites in Novartis, like huge plants. So we do around like, 50 to 100 doses per day from Sunday through Wednesday. And we have approximately 200 SKUs we use in production for both products, both drugs, for Lutathera and Pluvicto. And mostly the raw materials are common. There are like, maybe few like they're different from one another. And we keep inventory in Millburn site for all raw materials except one, which is lutetium-177. That is the radioactive material. So we can't keep stock because it's radioactive. So it's like, so you need to have like certain quantity, and then also its shelf life is really not long. So that's why we need to get it from the vendors like on time, and now we need to start production in Millburn as soon as we receive it. So I'm going to mention about it a little bit. I'm going to start with it. So lutetium-177, we have more than one vendors for lutetium-177 in the United States and also outside of the United States. And so it's actually a product of a reactor. So you see there are like two different lutetium-177. I'm not going to go into details. It's already so boring, so I don't want to like, give you too much information. So basically what we do, so there are like two raw materials of lutetium-177. One is lutetium-176, and then the other one is ytterbium-176. So these materials are stable isotopes, which means that they're not radioactive. And then what happens, and they're in the nature, but they are quite scarce, so they're expensive. And then these products are, just one of them actually, is irradiated in a reactor for 6 days. Okay? And then after that, so they are, it's moved to another site, and then there are another process going on there before we receive this, lutetium-177. So altogether, we need 7 days before it comes to our manufacturing site. So in other words, it's it works like this. So let's say in the reactors, the process starts on previous Wednesday, and then it ends on this Wednesday, and then they ship it either on Wednesday or Thursday, and then we receive it on Friday, and then we start production on Sunday. It doesn't have to be this way, but so this is how we do it right now. And so our production starts early in the morning. It takes several hours, and now most of the time it ends around morning, before noontime. And then as soon as that production ends, that 3 days period starts, or 5 days. So after the production, our quality department starts doing the tests. So it takes several hours. They carry out several tests, and then we get the quality release most of the time next day in the morning. So in other words, we lose almost 24 hours just for testing, and then it leaves us only less than most of the time 24 hours for us to deliver Lutathera in the United States and also Canada. It's quite a bit of challenge if you are shipping from Melbourne. But in our case, sometimes we ship it even from Europe. So to the United States and also to Canada. So that's what we do. So after we get the release, so our logistics team, they start shipping out the products to the final customers, to hospitals, basically. We use several logistics companies, and then we use road transportation. If we can drive, we drive up to 10, 12 hours. And then we use air transportation, such as commercial airliners like United Airlines, American Airlines. And in some cases, if there's delays, or if there's for example, bad weather, or in holiday seasons, we use private jets. It's extremely expensive, but we really want to make sure that we deliver all the products on time. To be honest, I use this, we really take it personal, because these products are produced for certain patients. It's not, we're not shipping it and then they keep stock and then they use it when they have a customer. And then there's a patient, it's possibly, late, they have late stage cancer, and then this is last resort for them. So it's really so important for us to make the product on time at the final destination. So that's why our logistics team monitors all the products until they arrive to the last point. Our reliability is around over 99%. So it's actually over 99.5%. So this is kind of typical, supply chain processes, right? So what we do, so we provide forecast to our vendors. So most of the time, if it is critical vendors, so we provide them 12 months, forecast, so they can do their production planning. And then our procurement team, actually that is done by our materials requirement planning team. And then our procurement team, they do the agreements, right, with the vendors. And then also they send the purchase orders to vendors. And then they follow up the materials until they come. And then we have our warehouse, they receive the goods, and then they store them, and then they give it to production. Production is not supply chain, it's a separate group. And now when they do the production, our logistics team this time, they receive the products, and then ship it to the final destination. So it's like, end-to-end process. So, so to just give you a visual, so you can just, understand what kind of products that we are shipping. So you see the packages, it's the final package that we are shipping to the final customers. So I'm sorry, it's metric, but it's like, this size, I don't know the inch or the sizes. And so we have that green one is the lead pot, because the material inside this product is radioactive. So we need to make sure that even though it's like, very limited to radioactivity, we need to make sure that we're complying with the rules and everything. And then that green pot, lead pot goes into the box. We can ship up to 4 doses in one box. And then, as I said, since it's radioactive materials, there are like a lot of like certain rules apply to these materials. I see that the United States is a little bit, like easier, but when it comes to like, shipping in, for example, in Germany or in Europe, there are like so many like, strict rules apply to these products. In my opinion, it's like kind of a miracle to, make these products on time at the final destination. So the challenges, so we have, so I think if you are really planning to, have a career in supply chain, I would really ask you to think twice. This is like, quite stressful. If you are like, especially in like daily operations, this is like really stressful work. But on the other hand, I really love my job because I see the results immediately. So basically within a day or so, like if I'm successful or not. So all the metrics are there. But the other thing is like, we are like helping patients, thousands of patients. We know that like we are touching their lives. So these are the really the positive sides. But so I should say that. So it's really quite stressful work. So the challenges, like similarly with you. So once in a year we have like problems from the lutetium-177 vendors. So these reactors are quite old. It's like the maintenance is like extremely expensive. And then we see a lot of problems with them. The problem is when we have a problem, so we need to place the order like, in advance, like, 2-3 weeks in advance. And then there's that certain time, like, 7 days time. So when there's a problem, you most of the time like find it out. So just 2-3 days prior to our production. And then there's not much you can do. So, and when there's like such problems, so it's most of the time you need to like, reschedule all the patients for the week, which we are like talking about maybe 200, 300, patients. That's kind of a disaster. It's really so upsetting for the patients. So until now, I don't remember like if we really reschedule like, 200, 300 patients because of, vendor issue. But once in a year we have like, like similar issues, but every time you find a solution to recover it. And then the other challenge is shipment from vendor, from reactor to our production sites. Again, we have these problems like once in a year or 2 years. And then the other problem is the production issues. This is not because our production is bad, but it's the nature of this, production type. So you see always like, different problems because of the radioactivity. And then this happens like maybe every week or every other week. And then the biggest challenge we have is in transportation. So it's like incredible. We see like all type of problems. Like, if we are shipping from Europe, so we see like customs delays, and then we see like FDA release delays. We see in commercial flights like delays because we use the same like commercial flights when we are flying from one point to another. And So if there's like, for example, damage in the package, they can't move it. They need to stop it. And then, like, even if there's no problem with anything, the pilot has the authority to offload it. So, and then they can say that I don't want like nuclear or radiopharmaceutical product in my plane. And then I saw all that kind of, problems. And then when there's a problem, we need to act quickly to like, recover it and then, ship another backup dose if we have it, or find another solution. And then you need to act really quickly. So you don't have really enough, like a lot of time to wait and then do it like, next day. That's, I think, the biggest challenge. And then lastly, so I want to show you the sites that we have. So we have, as I mentioned, one site in Melbourne. And then there's another site in Indianapolis. It's going to be up and running soon. And then there are 3 sites in Europe. So almost all sites are backing up each other. So it's pretty much it. So I hope, you can like, benefit from it. And so if you have, as Jorge said, like, you can always reach out to us and then you can like ask any questions you may have. I think we have like question and answer session. So if you want to come here.
I had the chance to be on the vendor side to a CAR T situation, and some of the things they were asking us to do got to be to the level of what we thought was comical to, for what they were asking us to do. They wanted us to serialize racks that they were using in their server farm. And we thought, how could they possibly need us to serialize racks? And they said, well, it's CAR T. You have to understand. And, my thought to that was, gee, is that the company that, and it wasn't Novartis, but let's just pretend it was for a moment and say, do you think that was Novartis, the CAR T company demanding that, or was that a regulation that was demanding that? And the second part of that question is it over-regulated to the point that it's making the costs go through the roof unnecessarily?
I will answer in a way that I understand the process. For the CAR T technology, we don't have a final product. The product is the process. So when you have the process is your product. You need to control every single step of the things that you are doing to avoid any spikes or any variation on the process. At the level of, as I shared with you, the level of having control of the ink that is on the label. So I don't know what is exactly the rationale behind that, but when you are talking about this kind of technology where you don't have a final product itself, the final product is what you are doing, you want to ensure that every single time that you are doing that is exactly the same as the previous time. At the extreme to control not only the raw materials, but also the training of the people, but also the temperature, the control areas, everything is under control because everything that you are doing is itself the product, the final product. So I don't have a bold answer for your questions, but I understand the nature of the process. And we as manufacturers, what we want to do is to ensure that we have no deviations for what we are doing. And the way to control that is putting everything on the level of the same needs in terms of having a robust, reliable, and sustainable process. And potentially, yes, you can serialize whatever is needed to do that. So, because the product is the process.
Well, the second part of the question, is there over-regulation?
It is.
Is there over-regulation from the government?
There is I believe so. I mean, at the beginning, when you are going into this process, which is the first time, the agencies are putting so much pressure in a lot of things that then with the time, when you have experience, when you have a critical mass of patients, you will say, okay, this is not affecting my final product. But potentially, yes, you will see sometimes where you are overruling the process in order to ensure something, and then you will realize that, okay, probably we did an extra mile here and there. But yes, it's the nature of what we are seeing. There's a lot of uncertainty on the agencies, not only locally in the FDA or worldwide, and they want to control everything. So yes, it's a very regulated process, very regulated process. Anytime.
This will be a CAR T one. So the doer has to go out in time for the apheresis to
Correct.
collect the blood. And then you got to get the doer back in time for your slot in your manufacturing. And then on the tail end of the manufacturing, you got to let the patient know when to start the chemo, get the doer, and you notice I'm saying doer as opposed to the cells. I got to get the doer out to the patient. And then what you left out was you want your doer back, I assume.
Correct.
So all that is really the supply chain issue is the actual doer
Correct.
going back. And
Correct.
What is the scheduling stick in the ground? Is it the start of the slotting, or is it where do you base your scheduling off of? Somewhere you're putting it.
I didn't understand your question, sorry. So I got the part from the doer. I didn't understand the question. Sorry.
The part is when you first schedule all of those 4 steps.
Yes.
What's the gating factor? Is it the start of the slotting of the manufacturing? Or is it patient related?
It's a combination of those. It's the patient, when you are finishing manufacturing, that you need to ensure that you ship that, and it's also when the patient will arrive into the hospital to get the product. So it's a combination. In the meantime, there are other combinations. It's different when you are scheduling a patient in New York. You don't have any delays. It's different when you are scheduling a patient in Sao Paulo, Brazil, because you have customs in the middle. So there's a team dedicated to understand every single step on the cold chain to do the matching of the dates when you are delivering and when the patient is arriving into the hospital. And then you have, as you nail it, you have the reverse logistics. The moment that you deliver, the patient, the physician struck the bag with the final product, we need to recover that doer to reprocess that and to ship back another patient. So the complexity is not only just in time, it's not only cold chain, it is not only centralized, it is also the reverse logistics all the way. Yeah.
Hi. So I have a question on one of your favorite topics, which is forecasting and predicting your patient flow. Do you mind sharing what are some of the factors that you use in order to predict what that patient flow is going to be looking like?
Okay, yeah, sure. Go first, go you.
Yeah, so it's, for us, forecast is a big challenge. So we have the FDA approval for Lutathera in 2015. So for that one, it's easy. Actually, for 2016 for Lutathera, because we have like a trend, right? So right now, so all the demand is like it's flat. So we don't see any like spike or anything. For Pluvicto, we got the approval in the like very recently. So in the beginning of this year, if I remember correctly. So we don't have really, our commercial team is like trying to get the information from the customers to, provide us, especially, this supply chain team, to make sure that we have the enough capacity to meet the demand. But every time when we have like even weekly meetings, even though we have weekly meetings with them, so every time we get like different forecasts. So just to give you an idea, like maybe a month ago, we have like 6,000 units for like 1 year. That number like became to 30,000 units.
Right.
So
Wow.
that's why it's kind of, for a new product, it's kind of hard.
Right.
but for the old ones, so this basically it's pretty much flat, and then we don't see any fluctuation or like any change.
Complementing that, we have a very strong SOP process, SNOP process. So we have different tools to predict the demand. Definitely we have the marketing intelligence tools. We have some statistical regression tools, and definitely the strong SOP process is what gives you a better perspective of the future. There's no one single source of information. It varies very much between country to country. So new countries, new launches, you have a significant variability. When you have more mature countries, it's much easier to predict what is coming. So it's not one single source, but for me, again, it's the process. How close are you with the process? How close is the manufacturing or the supply chain team close to the sales team, which is in the front line with the physicians, is the key on this prediction on the demand.
Right. And is all your distribution directly to the physicians, or does it also happen through distributors?
No, there's no distributors here. There's no space for that. So this is an end-to-end process controlled by Novartis. There's no distributors in the middle.
Also, the nature is not possible, right? So we are talking about only like 24 hours transportation time. So it's almost impossible to ship it to somewhere and then ship from there.
Right, makes sense.
When usually we think about the distribution model, the distributor is adding value on holding inventory and redistributing that inventory. So for that, you need kind of traditional pharmaceutical products. This kind of business do not accept this model at all.
Thank you.
Fine.
I'm sorry, everyone, this has to be the last question. It's past 8 o'clock. But Gokhan and Jorge will be hanging around for a while, and they're more than happy to talk with you individually. But I do want to thank all of you so much for coming here. This is such an interesting topic, and the presentation was excellent. Thank you.
Thank you
very much. And thank you, Ed, for making all this happen. Stand up and take a bow. Just a small token of our appreciation for your time and expertise.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And just some fun stuff. Jocelyn Dualo, who's our student chapter, ASCM student chapter president currently, has some fun stuff for you.
Yes. Okay, hi. So as stated in the email and in Engage, we do have our in-person door prizes. I have tickets here, so come see me if you do want to. We have Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks gift cards. It is only for students of Seton Hall and other schools and guests. Unfortunately, G&J members, you can't. But we do thank you so much for coming. So just see me, but thank you once again for everyone for coming. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.